Welcome back for another deep dive. You know, Today we're looking at something a little different. It's a story about ambition and resilience, and we're going to be focusing on like the early life of this kid, Alex.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they grew up in poverty in this fictional town called Milltown.
Okay.
And our main source material for this is actually the first episode of this podcast called From Rags to Riches. We're going to be breaking that down for you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. This fictional podcast really emphasizes the setting right from the start.
Mhm.
We're introduced to Milltown, the small rural town, and they really play up how the community values like simplicity and strong bonds with each other. But for Alex, Milltown represents something totally different.
Yeah, for sure. It's like an immediate contrast for the listener, right?
Right. Yeah.
Milltown is like this idyllic place for some people, but for Alex, it's like this cycle of hardship that they just desperately want to escape. And when young Alex asks their mother, why can't we have what the other kids have? Yeah. I think we all like immediately get the core conflict of the story.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's really intriguing is how the podcast doesn't just tell us about Alex's struggles, it makes us feel them.
Right.
That description of their home, this small weathered house, thin walls, leaky roof, it's more than just a setting. It speaks to the limitations that poverty places on their dreams.
Yeah,
But at the same time, even within those limitations, there's like a powerful sense of love.
totally. Yeah, and the podcast does a great job of highlighting that contrast, right?
Hmm.
Like it makes you think, how much does our environment like really shape our ambitions? For Alex, their home is like a source of love and support, but it also represents that cycle of poverty that they're trying to break free from.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there's Alex's mother, Maria.
Oh yeah, Maria.
She's this hardworking seamstress, clearly just exhausted from trying to make ends meet, yet she's just fiercely devoted to her child. You get the sense that she kind of represents both the warmth of Milltown and the struggle to survive there.
She's like such a compelling character. And her belief in Alex is so heartwarming.
Yeah.
But it also kind of sets up another conflict, right? Like that clash between Alex's big dreams and that small town mentality that surrounds them. We see that so clearly in that scene with the neighbor who like scoffs at Alex for having their nose in a book, suggests they learn a trade instead.
It's just that scene perfectly captures how like societal pressures can limit our aspirations. It's like the community wants Alex to conform to their definition of a realistic future.
Right.
But Alex's curiosity is insatiable. We hear about them spending hours in the library just devouring books and dreaming of something more. It makes you think about how often we internalize these limiting beliefs and how hard it can be to break free from them.
Totally. And, even though Alex is surrounded by all this negativity, they don't let it crush their spirit.
Yeah.
That image of them sitting by the river, dreaming big, is just so powerful. It highlights their resilience and their ability to find hope and inspiration, even when faced with all this adversity.
Yeah, the river almost becomes like a symbol, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
It represents that path to something bigger, an escape from the confines of their current reality. It makes you consider how important it is to find those spaces, whether physical or metaphorical, where we can nurture our dreams and aspirations. But it also raises the question, what opportunities actually existed for someone like Alex to break free from these circumstances, especially in a time with like fewer resources available to them?
That's a great question. It makes you really think about all those systemic factors at play. Sure, Alex has ambition and a hunger for knowledge, but those things alone might not be enough. How much does socioeconomic background, access to education, and even just the prevailing attitudes of a community play a role in someone's ability to succeed?
Yeah, that's a crucial point. We often hear these like rags to riches narratives as like stories of individual triumph, but they're also a reflection of the opportunities or lack thereof that are available to certain individuals. It's not just about hard work, it's about access.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little further. We see that Alex is this like resourceful and determined individual, but it seems like their options in Milltown are pretty limited. So what are some ways, like historically speaking, that a young person in Alex's position might have been able to break free from those limitations?
Well, education has always been a powerful tool for social mobility, even though access to it hasn't always been equal. Perhaps Alex could find a way to continue their education beyond what's available in Milltown,
Okay.
like through scholarships, apprenticeships, or even like self-directed learning.
It's interesting you say that because there's another detail from the podcast that really stuck with me. We hear that Alex is super inspired by their mother's words about hard work. But for Maria, hard work means long hours and barely making ends meet. So do you think Alex sees hard work as like a way out, or just as a means of survival like their mother?
That's such a good observation. I think it's probably a combination of both. Alex clearly sees the value of hard work.
Hmm.
You know, they're constantly helping their mother with sewing and taking on odd jobs. But they also seem to understand that hard work alone might not be enough to break that cycle of poverty.
Exactly. And that brings us to like a pivotal moment in the podcast. Remember how they mentioned that chance encounter at the local market? This is where things start to get really interesting, for Alex at least.
That chance encounter you just mentioned, it really highlights another crucial factor in Alex's journey.
Right.
It's not just about their individual drive, it's also about the people we meet along the way and the opportunities they present.
For sure. This is where we meet Eleanor, right?
Yeah.
This older woman that Alex just bumps into at the market. And she's not just any random townsperson. The podcast makes it clear that she's like well-read, insightful, and she quickly recognizes Alex's potential in a way that others in Milltown haven't.
It's really fascinating. It's like this encounter kind of subtly shifts the narrative. It challenges the idea that rags to riches is just about like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Eleanor becomes like this catalyst for Alex's growth, offering not financial aid, but like something much more valuable, mentorship and guidance.
Yeah, it's like she sees a spark in Alex that no one else has noticed. Or maybe they have, but they've dismissed it because of Alex's circumstances.
Right.
And what's so cool is that Eleanor doesn't just offer empty encouragement. She starts lending Alex books from her own personal library, exposing them to this whole new world of knowledge and ideas.
That's where the theme of access comes back into play, right? It's not just about having the desire to learn, but having the resources and opportunities to actually do it.
For sure.
And in this case, Eleanor provides that access for Alex, which makes you think how many like brilliant minds have been overlooked throughout history just because they didn't have the right support system or access to the knowledge they needed to thrive.
It's almost like a classic hero's journey, isn't it? The young protagonist encounters a wise mentor who guides them toward their destiny. But it's also very real and relatable. Like we've all had teachers, friends, or family members who have encouraged our passions
Yeah.
and helped us to see our own potential.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting how the podcast doesn't portray Eleanor as like wealthy or powerful in the traditional sense. Her wealth lies in her knowledge and her willingness to share it with Alex. It challenges the idea that mentorship always has to come from a position of authority or financial status.
Right.
Sometimes the most impactful mentors are simply those who believe in us and are willing to guide us on our path.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, Alex doesn't just passively absorb this new knowledge. They start actually putting it into action.
Right.
Like we hear about them experimenting with these simple inventions, tinkering with like broken gadgets, even like finding ways to use their newfound scientific knowledge to help local farmers. It shows how Alex like takes their learning beyond just the theoretical. It makes it tangible.
Exactly. It's not just about reading books, but understanding the concepts and applying them to like real world problems. This practical application of knowledge is a key element in so many successful people's stories. They don't just consume information, they use it to create, to innovate, to make a real difference.
It's also worth noting that this whole sequence challenges some of those stereotypical portrayals of rural communities.
Oh, yeah.
Often, small towns are depicted as being resistant to change.
Yeah.
Or suspicious of intellectual pursuits. But in this story, even though some characters kind of embody those attitudes, you have someone like Eleanor, who represents a different side of Milltown.
That's such an important observation. It reminds us that communities are complex. And even within a small town, you can have such a diversity of perspectives and individuals who challenge the status quo. And in this case, it's Eleanor who becomes that catalyst for Alex's growth, pushing them beyond the limitations of their environment.
And then, just as Alex is starting to make a name for themselves in Milltown, the podcast introduces another pivotal character, William, a traveling merchant who sees the potential in Alex's inventions. It's almost as if, like, the universe is conspiring to push Alex towards their destiny.
It certainly feels that way. And it raises the question, is this just a lucky break? Or is it the result of Alex's hard work and ingenuity finally being recognized?
Yeah.
Like, is opportunity purely a matter of chance? Or do we create our own opportunities through our actions and the way we engage with the world?
What do you think? Was it just luck that brought William to Milltown? Or was it something more?
I think it's probably a bit of both. There's definitely an element of chance involved, but I also think that Alex's reputation as this like budding inventor probably played a role. Word travels fast, even in a small town, and maybe William had heard whispers of Alex's talent before he even got there. It speaks to the idea that we can create opportunities by making ourselves visible, putting our work out there and demonstrating our unique abilities.
So William doesn't just offer to buy Alex's inventions. He proposes something much bolder. He suggests that Alex join his caravan and travel with him to this bustling city of Evermore, a place known for innovation and opportunity. It's almost too good to be true.
It really is. It makes you wonder how much of our success depends on taking risks, stepping outside of our comfort zones. It's easy to just stay in the familiar, in the place where we feel safe and secure. But sometimes the greatest rewards come from embracing the unknown, from venturing out into the world and seeing what's possible beyond our immediate surroundings.
And for Alex, this decision is even more complicated because it means leaving their mother behind.
Right.
It's a huge dilemma, and it really highlights the emotional stakes involved in pursuing one's ambitions.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's this really powerful scene in the podcast where Alex and Maria discuss William's proposition. And Maria, despite her own fears and anxieties, she encourages Alex to seize this opportunity. She knows this could be their chance to break free from the limitations of Milltown and achieve their full potential. It's a beautiful moment that shows the depth of their bond and Maria's selfless love for her child.
So what does Alex decide? Do they take the leap and venture into the unknown?
Well, you'll have to wait for part 3 to find out, but I can tell you this, the decision Alex makes will have a huge impact on the rest of their journey. It's a crossroads moment that forces them to confront their deepest fears and aspirations.
Okay, so last time we left Alex at a crossroads, right? They had to decide whether to leave Milltown and journey to Evermore with William. This incredible opportunity, but leaving their mom and everything they know behind must have been terrifying. What did they choose?
Yeah, the podcast really captures that internal struggle. On the one hand, there's the fear of the unknown, right? The guilt of leaving Maria behind.
Yeah.
And the doubt that maybe they won't succeed in this new environment.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's that burning desire to go after their dreams, to test their abilities on a bigger stage, and to create a better life for themselves and their mother.
It's like that classic follow your dreams versus stay in your comfort zone dilemma.
Right.
But the podcast shows us that this decision isn't made lightly. It's not just about ambition. It's about weighing those aspirations against their responsibilities and the emotional ties that bind them to Milltown.
And it's interesting how William the merchant approaches this situation. He doesn't downplay the challenges or make empty promises.
Yeah.
He appeals to Alex's logic and ambition, painting a picture of Evermore as a place where their talents will be truly valued.
Yeah, there's a line in the podcast where he says something like, Evermore is a city that thrives on innovation. It's a place where ideas are currency and where someone with your talents could truly flourish. It's like he's speaking directly to that part of Alex that wants something more than what Milltown can offer.
Exactly. And what's really important is that William doesn't just dangle that carrot of opportunity. He offers to be Alex's guide and advocate in this new world. He promises to introduce them to potential investors, connect them with other inventors and creators, and help them navigate the craziness of city life. It's almost as if he's offering to be the bridge between Alex's talent and the resources they need to actually succeed.
It's interesting because this mentorship dynamic with William is different from the one with Eleanor.
Right.
Eleanor provided intellectual guidance and access to knowledge. William seems to offer more practical support, helping Alex navigate the social and economic landscape of Evermore.
That's a really good point. It highlights how different types of mentorship are important for our development at different stages of life. And in this case, both Eleanor and William are essential in helping Alex reach their full potential.
So what's the verdict? Does Alex take that leap of faith? Join William's caravan?
Well, the podcast builds the suspense, but ultimately Alex chooses to embrace the unknown. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, they say goodbye to Milltown and start this incredible journey to Evermore. It's a huge moment that signals not just a physical journey, but a transformation within Alex themselves.
It's like that classic hero setting off on their quest, right?
Right.
Leaving the familiar behind,
Yeah.
stepping into a world full of challenges and possibilities. But I imagine going from small-town life to the bustling city of Evermore probably wasn't easy.
Oh, yeah. The podcast hints at those difficulties, that culture shock, the challenges of adapting to a new environment, and the constant pressure to prove themselves in a world that's way more competitive than Milltown.
Do they ever regret their decision? Is there ever a moment where they wish they could just go back to that simplicity of their old life?
There are definitely moments of doubt and homesickness. The podcast shows that emotional toll of the journey. But even in those moments of vulnerability, you never get the sense that they regret their decision. Their ambition and determination keep them going.
So how do Alex's inventions do in Evermore? Does their small-town ingenuity translate to success in this new environment?
Well, the podcast really plays up that rags to riches trope, describing how Alex's creations just captivate the people of Evermore. Their inventions aren't just clever gadgets, they solve real-world problems and make people's lives easier. It's almost like their unique perspective, shaped by growing up in Milltown, gives them an edge in a city obsessed with progress and innovation.
That's cool how the podcast uses this contrast between rural and urban life to highlight Alex's strengths, their resourcefulness, practicality, and ability to think outside the box. All of that came from their experiences in Milltown, and those traits become their greatest assets in Evermore.
It really flips that stereotype that small town folks are somehow less sophisticated or innovative than city people. Alex shows that ingenuity can come from anywhere. And sometimes that outsider perspective leads to the most groundbreaking ideas.
It sounds like William stays true to his word, helping Alex navigate the social and economic scene in Evermore. Do they achieve that kind of success they dreamed of back in Milltown?
Oh, yeah, the podcast ends on a note of triumph, with Alex's inventions getting recognition and financial success. But it's not portrayed as some, sudden windfall or a stroke of luck. It's the result of their hard work, their willingness to learn and adapt, and the support they had from both Eleanor and William.
It reminds you that success is rarely a solo thing, right? We all need guidance, encouragement, and sometimes a little help from others to really achieve our full potential. But it's also about recognizing our own strengths,
Right.
embracing opportunities, and being brave enough to step outside our comfort zones.
And although this is a fictional story, it kind of speaks to those universal truths about life and makes you reflect on your own journey, the people who have influenced you, the challenges you've overcome, and the choices you've made that have shaped your path.
It also makes you wonder about all the other Alexes out there, right?
Yeah.
People with incredible talents and dreams who just need the right opportunity or a helping hand to reach their full potential. It makes you think about how we can all support and encourage those around us, especially those who might not have the same advantages or access to resources.
What sticks with me is that message of hope and resilience. It reminds us that no matter where you start in life, with determination, some support, and a willingness to embrace the unknown, we can achieve amazing things.
It's a really inspiring deep dive, one that leaves you feeling motivated and optimistic about the possibilities that exist for each and every one of us.